Prehistory was full of amazing animals, and there's no denying that. More often than not, the prehistoric animals that capture our attention the most are either the largest ones, think of the giant sauropods and theropods of the Mesozoic, or the ones we can relate to, such as the megafauna of the Cenozoic we just missed out on seeing. The remains of and mysteries surrounding the giant ape Gigantopithecus, for example, have drawn in human imagination since their initial discovery in 1935. Perhaps this is because Gigantopithecus is one of the closest real-life animals to the fantastical beasts of ancient human folklore, the giants, ogres, and titans of fiction and lore. It will come as little surprise then that some modern humans have attempted to draw comparisons between the real animals of the past and the fictitious creatures of human history, resulting in some rather outlandish claims. In today's video, we will be examining one such theory in close detail. For hundreds of years, humans have reported on the remains of giants discovered in lost regions of America, proposed hominid creatures even larger than the long-extinct Gigantopithecus. Some of these reports of giants concern beings that ranged from sizes of 7 all the way up to 20 feet and counting. It goes without saying that there is no scientific backing or evidence of these claims, and as a result, many of them have become obscured to the depths of folklore and cryptozoology. But that doesn't make them any less interesting. Join us as we take a trip through human history to explore the wondrous and weird tales of the supposed giant human beings of North America. As the ancestors of Europeans who had settled in the New World began to gain more control over the continent of North America in the 18th and 19th centuries, we start to see some of the very first claims of giants, or giant humanoids, arising in folklore and cryptozoology. This is thought to be a result of European integration with Native American communities, whose folktales and ancestral stories frequently featured such beasts. As word of these ancient giants spread to settlers in America, it didn't take long for these stories to take control of the human imagination, and rumors likely spiraled out of control. Unfortunately, as in all things with colonialism, the European versions of these tales quickly descended into racist territory. Settlers adapted the native myths of giants and used them to explain the construction of the Great Mounds of the Mississippi Valley. Built by Native American cultures long before the arrival of Europeans, the settlers' stories twisted the truth to paint a picture of an ancient race of white giants who were exterminated by Native American cultures. These stories were used to vilify these Native American cultures, which would all contribute to their eventual corporate and crown-backed genocide. These stories would become commonplace in nearly all historical literature by the time the American Civil War rolled around in 1861, with Christian leaders attempting to shoehorn biblical connections with this fictitious race of giants. When humans started digging for fossils in the Americas, the story took on a new form, this time manipulated by the media. Benjamin Smith Barton, a naturalist who had spent time considering both the fabricated giant myths and the fossil records of North America, preempted it himself when mastodon bones started to reach public common knowledge. These huge relatives of mammoths and elephants roamed the plains and tundras of North America in the Pleistocene epoch, and whilst they lived alongside early humans, they were of absolutely no relation. He attempted to warn the public that these bones were likely to be used to feed the dangerous myths of long-lost giants, but did little to stop the spread of these lies. Unfortunately, as tensions between settlers and natives rose, those stories would be manipulated more and more, with the extinct race of white giants being glamorized as superior titans that outshone Native Americans in culture, strength, and size. It wasn't long until people began to take advantage of these false claims for their own gain. developing hoaxes based on mastodon and mammoth bones that would garner a great deal of public attention. The most famous of these hoaxes was the so-called Cardiff Giant, a falsely exhumed skeleton of a 10-foot-tall, 3,000-pound fossilized man that was brought to public attention in 1869. In October, laborers digging a well behind a barn in Cardiff, New York, struck something strange with their shovels. Removing it from the earth, they gathered that it appeared to be a human skeleton, albeit a massive one. William C. Newell, who commissioned the well in the first place, was quick to set up a tent around the find, charging people money to come and see the amazing discovery of a fossilized giant human being. The giant attracted nationwide attention, and many people would gather to see it, not knowing that the bones were little more than an elaborate hoax. The famed showman P.T. Barnum would even make a copy to add to his own act. In reality, the giant was created and planted by a man named George Hull, a con artist and tobacco salesman from New York City. Ironically, however, Hull did not plant the giant for financial gain, but as an act of revenge. An early confidant in Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, Hull would argue with local reverends against the creation theory in an attempt to sway public opinion that humans were descended from primates. Specifically, Hull would criticize Genesis 6:4 of the Bible, which references ancient giants. People laughed at his stance on evolution, and to prove his point that locals would believe anything, he planted a fake cast of a giant in a location he knew would be excavated and watched the absurdity unfold. Hull would eventually confess to the hoax, explaining in detail why he planted the giant. Today, the artifact can still be seen at the Farmers Museum in Cooperstown, New York. The disproving of the Cardiff Giant did little to stop the misinformation spread by the news, and hundreds of articles from the time the hoax took place continued to describe the stories of giant humans once walking the earth in the times before Homo sapiens. This would continue to increase when more hoaxes were put forward, including a notable instance in Tennessee that would go on tour across the state. Strangely enough, both men of science and of the church confirmed this skeleton to be the real deal, proposing it to be an extinct 20-foot-tall relative of ancient human beings. It wasn't until Dr. William Carpenter assessed the bones in Louisiana that it was discovered that this was no giant at all, but another mastodon. False excavations continued throughout the course of the 19th century, where hoax giant skeletons were displayed in traveling shows, sold to the highest bidders, or reported on by the media. We continue to live in an age of hoaxes, yet these are more often than not displayed on the internet rather than in traveling shows. Grainy videos and distant photographs make it difficult to determine just what is being shown in such hoaxes, and as a result, many people the world over believe that cryptids such as Bigfoot and its supposed relatives wander the pine forests of the Pacific Northwest. Such beliefs have found their way into academic literature, as in John Green's 1967 article indicating the existence of giants in North America in the modern day. He cites massive humanoid footprints as evidence that a race of humanoid giants still continues to exist in Western North America to this day. The opening section of this article reads, "There is in Western North America something that makes enormous human-like footprints. This is a demonstrable fact. These footprints are often as much as 16 inches in length and occasionally more. Some are fully 8 inches wide at the ball of the foot. When made in materials in which impression depth varies with force implied, they indicate weights many times that of any normal human. These are not the footprints of bears or human beings, or marks made by overlapping smaller impressions. Any imprint that could possibly be explained in any such way would not be looked at twice by anyone familiar with the prints in question." Another question that has plagued the people of rural America for decades concerns arguably the most famous cryptid of all, Bigfoot. Stories of this reported humanoid ape tie in closely with reports of giants and giant humanoids in the wildlands of America. But as of this date, nothing concerning the beast has been scientifically proven. Alleged Bigfoot prints have been described from the western United States that supposedly measure 24 inches in length, indicating an animal that, if extant, would measure between 8 and 10 feet tall. Eyewitness accounts of these beasts describe a hairy, muscular animal that walks capably on two legs. Notoriously secretive in nature, some reports claim that it bangs on trees with large pieces of broken wood to communicate, uttering guttural trilling vocalizations from the depths of the forests. While outlandish, these claims tie in with the descriptions and reports of ancient giants from North America too. In 2013, Richard J. Dewhurst published The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, The Missing Skeletons, and the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up. The book is bold in the way it presents the history of giant finds and aims to paint a historical, scientific take on all the evidence for the fact that giants really did live in ancient America. Dewhurst covers supposed archaeological sites that can only be attributed to the ruined cities of giants, megalithic burial complexes from the Stone Age where giants buried their dead, and reportedly real images of giant discoveries that have been otherwise lost to the archives of academia and archaeology. The book is seen as controversial in the scientific community, as reviews claim that it does little to actually provide any scientific explanation or credible historical sources to back up its points. Much of the book consists of reprinted newspaper articles from times when the media was notoriously unreliable in presenting hoaxes as fact, and it takes an incredibly biased stance on the topic of ancient giants. It is important to reinstate at this point that there is no evidence anywhere in archaeology or the fossil record that giant human beings ever existed on planet Earth. In fact, we Homo sapiens are amongst the largest species of humans recorded in the fossil record. There would be no biological benefit for a human species to grow as tall as 20 feet, and all of the claims concerning ruins of giant cities can be attributed to either hoaxes or Native American settlements. The Great Smithsonian Cover-Up in the book's title refers to an internet hoax in the early 2010s that reported that the Smithsonian Institution had been secretly hoarding thousands of giant skeletons, denying their existence to the public. The story is thought to have spread from World News Daily Report, a satirical journalism site, who published an article which was ultimately spread and believed. In the article, it was jokingly proposed that the American Institute of Alternative Archaeology had blamed the Smithsonian Institution for hiding fossils. Upon the backlash the article received, investigations were held, and the story was openly outed as a piece of satire. But what about the giant fossils that haven't been debunked as hoaxes? What about the real skeletons that have been discovered that have been proven to belong to actual real humans who died hundreds or thousands of years ago? A 2024 study has the answer. A 7-foot-tall skeleton was analyzed by Nicholas Landau earlier this year, which was thought to have been discovered in pre-Columbian America. Upon studying this reported giant, Landau determined that in life this individual would have measured between 153 and 162 centimeters in height. He appeared larger in death as a result of disarticulation inflicted upon the bones after years of wear on the ground. More research is planned, but this is another key piece of research that debunks the claims that ancient giants once wandered the wilds of North America. We live in a world of constant information, and not all of it is reliable. According to a study by JournalLink in 2019, for example, 45% of adults in a survey of 1,000 in the United Kingdom believe they encounter fake news online every single day. Misinformation is believed to have influenced election results, large-scale conflicts, and public unrest, with almost 50% of adults believing the fake news they encounter every day. In a world where news is so readily available from so many unreliable sources, it is important to do your research and to not take everything you read on the internet at face value. If claims of ancient giants seem outlandish to you, it's likely because that's exactly what they are. There is, as disappointing as it may be, no evidence to suggest that a species of extinct giant once roamed ancient America, and the stories and artifacts presented by people claiming otherwise have all been confirmed to be hoaxes. Look then to the fossil records themselves. Animals such as Gigantopithecus, the colossal ape we discussed at the beginning of this video, are no less wondrous than the giant beings of folklore and legend. And they certainly did exist.